DCFM 88.9 REM, 10:15 with Ken, and with the outcomes from the standing committee meetings. Good morning to Mayor Matthew Dickerson.
Morning, Ken. Actually, they're our very last standing committee meetings of this term of council. We've got no standing committee meetings in August, and of course then you've got the elections in September. So that's the very last time we'll have standing committee meetings with this group of councillors.
So just run it through to acquaint me with the process. The standing committee meetings, this is DRC or a section of, a part of. What do the standing committee meetings contribute to DRC?
They're very similar to a council meeting. You've got the same membership, in other words, all 10 councillors at standing committee meetings. And the idea is that the standing committee meetings allow more flexibility in the way debate occurs. There's more flexibility in terms of how many times a councillor can speak on an item, how many times they can enter the debate. And the important part here is that the standing committee meetings don't make decisions of council. They make recommendations to the council meeting. The idea here is that you want to make sure that the public are informed about what's happening. You go through, have the standing committee meetings, we have debate, we have discussion, we make a recommendation, but it's not final. So you've got 2 weeks before the final decision's made, so people can contact their councillors and say, I heard what's happening there because of this issue, I heard the recommendation, I think you've got it wrong, or that's great, or whatever it might be. So it really is a process to make sure the public's fully informed about what's happening. The only difference to that is tenders. We do have authority at the committee meetings to award a tender, and we did do that with one tender last night, for example, but apart from that, they're not binding decisions, they're recommendations to council.
So it's another level of just getting things right.
Getting things right, but more importantly, I think, Ken, letting the community know. I'd be disappointed if someone found out about a decision of council when they read about it after a council meeting and that was the first they'd heard about it. This gives people the opportunity, and chatting to you, for example, gives the opportunity for your listeners to hear about some of the things we talked about last night, keeping in mind that you've got a chance then over the next 2 weeks to talk to a local councillor.
Okay, so now I was reading in the last couple of days, and a couple of Sydney councils have been tapped on the shoulder about building, especially home approvals, getting them through a lot more quickly. Tell us about DRC.
They actually issued what they called a ministerial statement of expectation. So that went out to all 128 councils. And there's absolute logic in what the state government's saying here. You need more housing across the state. We need more housing in Dubbo. Lots of people want to come to Dubbo. Fantastic. There's a whole range of things the state government's putting in place and the federal government. But if the bottleneck then becomes the local council in taking too long to get a DA processed, well, it doesn't solve the problem. So that's where that statement of expectations comes from the minister. We've received that, and that's been sent to myself, and I've obviously given that to the staff, but we're ahead of the game anyway with those. So in other words, they're putting certain expectations for certain processes that should occur, and all of our averages are ahead of those already. So we're going okay. It doesn't mean we're going to say, that's it, we can sit back and rest a bit Friday afternoon, everyone take it off, it's all good, guys. It's still something we'll keep trying to get better at, but ultimately what they're expecting from the state government, we're already delivering on at the moment, which is fantastic.
Fantastic. Now, let's talk about Australia Day next year. The year is disappearing quickly. It'll be Christmas tomorrow and New Year the week after. Australia Day 2025.
It's all about when we hold the event. The last 2 years, we've held the actual ceremony event on Australia Day in Dubbo, so on the 26th of January, and in Wellington we've held it as a twilight event on the 25th of January. Some people have been happy with that, some people haven't. It's been, I think, a reasonably successful move, although some people are still unhappy with it. When you consider that the major award we give out in this country, the Australian of the Year, that's given out by the Prime Minister of this country at a twilight event the day before Australia Day. We're not trying to say let's change the day. Council doesn't have the authority to change the day, but it's a discussion about when the event is actually held. Next year is interesting because Australia Day, the 26th of January, is on a Sunday. That means the Monday is the public holiday. Saturday obviously is a holiday for many people anyway. So you have a 3-day long weekend. So there was a lot of discussion last night at the committee meeting about when we should hold the 2 ceremonies. The recommendation from councillors at the meeting last night was to hold the Wellington ceremony on Friday, the 24th of January, again a twilight event, 6:30 p.m. For Dubbo, hold that at 6:30 p.m. on the Saturday, again as a twilight event, and then Australia Day on the Sunday. You're then free to go and enjoy that day in whatever way you want. Again, I can't stress it enough, Ken. We're not changing the day. I know people will say, Dubbo Regional Council, stop trying to change the day. We're not trying to do that. It's just about when you hold the ceremony and what's a convenient time, and also some sensitivities around Aboriginal people in our community. We've got 15.6% of our population Aboriginal, so this is really a way of saying to them, we can hold the ceremony on a different day, recognising the sensitivities around the day for Aboriginal people. But also, it could be convenient. In Wellington, for example, you go to the ceremony on the Friday night, you've got the full long weekend to go to the dam and maybe do some skiing or take advantage of the 3 days off that people will have just before school goes back.
Well, there you go. And of course, feedback, always welcome.
Absolutely right. You can email me, mayor@dubbo.nsw.gov.au. You can ring me, 0418 639 053. You can contact all the councillors. They've got their email and phone numbers on the website. You can go to those and look at those. So give that feedback, absolutely, because the final decision in 2 weeks' time will be made as to when that Australia Day ceremony will be held in Dubbo and Wellington.
And thank you for your time, Mayor Matthew Dickinson, with a couple of the outcomes from the Standing Committee meetings. DCFM, 10:22.